First of all, 15 million Canadian adults don't even have a will.
Right.
So you want to talk about unhappy inheritors? These are people that are finding out that even though they're the one that have been running the family business for 30 years and their brother is a veterinarian, he's going to be a co-owner of that business because there was no will in their parents.
Sean Durkin back with Dr. Thomas Deans. Thanks for joining us again.
Great to hear.
You're the author. I love trilogies. I love great trilogies like A Fistful Full of Dollars, A Dollar More, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Sergio Leone, the great trilogies. This is kind of another great trilogy. It started with Every Family's Business. Great book. We talked about that in the first podcast. This is the one I read, Willing Wisdom. It's a must-read for anyone that expects to actually leave an inheritance to beneficiaries and just talk out, have conversations around things like that. This one I have not read.
It's a beauty.
It's the new one.
It's brand new, out May 2024.
The Happy Inheritor.
Great title.
Is there an unhappy inheritor sometimes, maybe?
Oh, the book gets into a lot of explanation. There's a lot of very unhappy inheritors.
Okay. I was just curious.
No. Many unhappy. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
there's a lot of people. Well, there's a lot of people that are expecting a business,
right?
And they find out that it's leverage. They haven't had they're not privy to the financials, or they, maybe they have a parent who maybe a covert narcissist that are promising assets they don't even own. Are
you speaking directly to Barron Trump here?
There's some stuff that are stranger than fiction.
Wow.
Right. There are people that have, first of all, 15 million Canadian adults don't even have a will.
Right.
So you want to talk about unhappy inheritors? These are people that are finding out that even though they're the one that have been running the family business for 30 years and their brother is a veterinarian, he's going to be a co-owner of that business because there was no will and their parents die. They're going to be thrust into business together as equal business partners.
Now, you speak of this like you've been through it.
Well, I have been speaking on this subject.
Have you ever been through it?
Oh, I have been through it. Well, I have. So I joined a family business, a plastics manufacturing business. We had plants in Canada and Missouri, in the U.S. I joined at the age of 37.
Okay.
I ran that business for 8 years as CEO. Sold that business on February 8th, 2007. If you cast your mind back, that was about 15 minutes before the world blew up. We're not that smart. We were really, really fortunate to receive an unsolicited offer.
Good timing.
There was only 3 of us in our space. We were number 2 in market share. We sold to number 3, who became the new number 1.
Right.
Yeah.
We had a phenomenal exit. We were really, really fortunate. And then I promised to stay for a year to transition that business into the hands of the new owners.
Right.
After 6 months, they said, look, you're a pain in the ass. You need to go home. And I said, absolutely. I went home and I sat down. I played golf every day for 2 weeks. Right. I didn't even move my handicap. So I let go of the dream of the seniors tour.
Move on. Yeah.
And I moved on. And I found myself one morning writing this book. And I wrote. And 30 days later, I had Every Family's Business. I lived this book.
Right.
I lived it in really detailed terms. I had so many friends who were working in their parents' businesses that were having a hard time of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out when they were going to get control. And control just seems so elusive.
Yeah.
So it was really a book written from personal experience. Now, the second book.
Right.
You'll know from the first book, I'm talking about liquidity events. I'm trying to get those businesses, family businesses, sold to the next generation.
Yep.
Or sold to a third party. I really don't care.
You're agnostic.
I'm agnostic. I don't.
More about the value of the business.
It's about harvesting the value.
Yeah.
Right. And people don't value things unless they buy them.
Right.
So that was leading to a lot of businesses being sold. This book has led to thousands of businesses to be sold that otherwise would have been gifted to the next generation. Now you'd think that there's a whole generation of next gens who are like, who is this idiot? All I had to do was just wait for my parents to die, and then I would get a free business. And he comes along, writes this book, my parents read it, and then they sell it. But then guess what happens? They inherit the cash.
They inherit the money.
They inherit what they really, really want. Because the vast majority of Canadian estates unfold this way. Parents divide their assets equally amongst the next gens. The next gens get the cash. No one inherits cash and is disappointed.
Right.
Yeah.
So that led to this book.
That's that book.
Right.
That book was born from a lot of questions I was getting from my audience, who was saying, Tom, no one gave me $15 million. I started my little manufacturing business by myself. I bootstrapped it. And now I've sold my business. I've got $15 million. I solved one problem, business succession plan, transition plan, only to create a more vexing, complex, emotional problem, which is, how do I leave my money?
Right.
How do I leave it all to the moment that I die? Do I make living gifts? How much do I leave to charity? How much is too much to leave to charity?
Right.
That's an interesting concept.
When do I tell my children about what I've created and how much they're going to get?
Oh, please! I wish they would do more of that.
That are worth like over $100 million that their children have no idea what's coming down the pike.
And do you know why that is?
I wonder.
There is something called family systems theory. Academics will approach the study of families as an organization as a system. And the central tenet of that academic study is that, and no one disputes this, families repeat.
Okay.
We repeat good things. We repeat bad things. We know from study after study that if you grow up with two smokers, there's a higher probability that the children will smoke. Not a guarantee, a higher probability. You got one or two entrepreneurial parents, there's a higher probability the next gens are going to be entrepreneurs.
Right.
Okay, we just know that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about estate planning. There is a generation of baby boomers that are turning 76 right now.
Right.
They are loaded. They are the most affluent generation in the history of this country. They started businesses. They grew up listening to stories about their parents and grandparents and the Spanish flu and the First World War and the Great Depression, the Second World War. Like it was just 50 years of chaos and wealth destruction.
Sure.
Yeah.
So they had access to education. They worked hard, and they heard those stories, and the stories they heard from their parents and grandparents was, you work hard, there's a disaster coming, you save, you live below your means, you save, you invest. They did.
You have a naturally embedded catastrophe mindset, and
that's it.
Yeah.
They're turning 76.
Wow.
But guess what? They're approaching estate planning like their parents did, who probably didn't have a will. They certainly didn't have family meetings to talk about the orderly, transparent transition of family wealth, because there wasn't any.
Well, my impression, I'm just thinking of my grandfather, right? Like, I can't imagine my father going to my grandfather saying, hey, Dad, tell me about your financial situation. It'd be like followed up with a slap in the head and saying, none of your beeswax.
None of your business. Money, that's rude.
Yeah.
We'll deal with this at the appropriate time, which of course
when
is
we
never.
Never.
Which is when we can't have this conversation.
Right.
So the vast majority. So that's why I wrote this book. It was crazy. The courts are full of families fighting because they're learning about there was no will, or the absurdities of there is a will and it's completely ill-conceived.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
Ill-conceived.
Yep.
Leaving business, cottages, 5 kids.
Oh, I know.
No boy.
I know.
They're going to jam 5 kids who each have 2 kids into a 2-bedroom cottage. They're not going to deal with it. It's just going to be like a reveal party.
Yeah.
It's going to be like a reveal party, except where is that reveal party? I thought the reveal party was at was at the lawyer's office, right?
Yeah.
In Hollywood movies, everyone's all sitting there and the lawyer's got the document. He gets to the good part, who gets what.
Right.
And then someone gasps because they get the business or the millions of dollars. And of course, the lawyers know that gasping sound is the sound of litigation.
Right.
That's the sound of
music to
right.
the ears.
Oh, they love it. And that's what's going on.
Right.
What I learned was, it's not the reading of the will at the lawyer's office where all hell breaks loose. It's the funeral homes. It's the funeral home. Why? Because funeral directors have a legal authority. They actually have to ask for a copy of the will because the will lists the executor.
Right.
The executor has the legal authority and duty to implement final wishes.
Got it.
That are often spelled out in the will. So you have family members gathering. They're grieving.
Oh, I know.
Standing over mom.
You got the oldest son who pulls the will out of his pocket for the first time and tells the other kids that they're not co-executors. And they lose their mind.
Yeah.
And they're grieving.
Yeah.
This is how the administration...
Talk about an emotional explosion, right?
It is a complete and utter disaster.
Yeah.
So the elixir, the opposite to that, is families... And as a Canadian, this pains me to say this. We are a full decade behind the Americans who have been relying on facilitated family meetings with advisors like yourself.
Yeah.
You know this. You're a premium advisor working at the higher end. You know that advisors who sit down and help these families navigate these conversations, have these conversations, document these conversations, share their copies of their wills, get people prepared for what's coming.
Absolutely.
Those are the families that stay out of court.
Yep.
And become happy inheritors.
Become very happy inheritors.
Right?
Very happy inheritors.
See? I get it.
We talked about this earlier. We were talking about family legacy, and the most important thing is the actual family. Imagine if you had those conversations, the harmony that goes along with it to next generation. It's huge.
Oh, this is the tragedy of not seeing a larger uptake in family meetings. It's not just the protecting against the downside, the litigation, the chaos. But can you imagine someone who's clearly amassed more wealth than they can consume? In fact, you've got clients who move into their 70s and they de-accumulate. They sell stuff because they understand, finally for the first time, that cars and boats need trailers and license and insurance. All that stuff is work.
Right.
And they're like, oh, you know what? I just want a simple life. I want to simplify things. I want to move to cash. I want to get rid of that stuff. They master this idea. And what is so great in a family meeting is when they master that idea, realize they have surplus capital, and start to have really great conversations and start to transition some of that wealth to their adult children, introduce their adult children to their advisors, pass them off maybe to a younger associate, maybe not, but they have that confidence that that money isn't going to be squandered because they're coaching it.
Right.
They're facilitating that orderly transition in real terms. And it's just a little bit. We start to transition small amounts of wealth when our children are young, but as they get older and demonstrate a healthy relationship with wealth, they get more, and the gifts become more frequent. Notionally, what we're trying to do is die with nothing.
Right.
Having it fully transition. Living gifts in this country, tax-free.
Right.
We're not having the conversation. No. Not enough of us are anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a huge opportunity.
Absolutely.
What an interesting concept. I've never thought of it that way. You want to die with nothing.
Well,
there's a book. There's a new book actually that's called that. Die with Nothing. Yeah.
Did you write that, Dr. Tom?
I didn't, but I refer to that concept.
Yeah.
We always think estate planning is triggered by our death.
Yeah.
When is it triggered? For the vast majority of Canadians who are living longer, we are.
Yep.
When is estate planning really being triggered?
Should be immediate.
Lack of cognitive control, cognitive decline.
Yeah.
We have power of attorneys being triggered. Who do we appoint as our power of attorney for finance? Typically,
Spouse
first, then who? Who's backup? Children.
Kids.
Right.
Yeah.
The children that we've kept in the dark about our money are going to be in a position to make financial decisions on our behalf because we've used secrecy to control the adults in our family.
Well, and some of it is they're not ready to face reality. Like we're seeing it because we deal with intergenerations, right? And so we're seeing it from our younger clients who are in their 40s and 50s dealing with aging parents. They're not even talking about like what's their long-term care plan? How are we funding this? They're sitting there panicked in their own right going, am I going to have to pay for this? I don't know what mom and dad have.
Right.
And there's just this stress in each generation about it.
That is what I tackle in Willing Wisdom.
Yeah.
Exactly that. We have been led to believe that estate planning is all about answering the question, who gets our stuff when we're dead?
Right.
I wrote a book that says, oh no, you know who the beneficiary of a really well thought out estate plan is? The person whose plan is being written.
Right.
Yeah.
The elderly person who has the wisdom to first of all, build and share that plan with the people who will be impacted by that wealth that will transition.
Yep.
The courage and the wisdom to share that plan, they're the beneficiary. They're the beneficiary of greater care.
Yes.
Yep.
Because they've answered that question. There should be reciprocity in a family meeting. It's not just who gets my money. It's who's going to provide my care.
Right.
It's the same people having the same conversation. That's very different from, no, we're not going to talk about money.
You're saying, Dr. Tom, that most of these conversations aren't occurring. They should be occurring and they're not.
Correct.
Right? Are there any organizations or advisors out there, is there anyone doing a good job of this or trying to make this happen that are actually achieving it? Or is that just a dearth of we're just missing the beat here? Like we're not encouraging these conversations to happen like we should be.
National Bank.
Okay. That's what I like to hear.
National Bank. That was a softball. That was right across the plate. There are over 30,000 financial advisors. I work with a handful.
Yeah.
There is a lot of advisors I could be sitting across the table from who wouldn't have a clue on what I'm talking about. They're just not working in that space. You've had me on this show because you've read my books. You understand what I'm trying to do. It's a little aspirational. And you understand that it probably works best with clients of affluence, a certain wealth level. It's the smarter advisor who understands. Listen, 80% of inherited money packs up and leaves to a new advisor. Advisors are smart, should be smart about this.
Yeah, pick up on that. Yeah.
Get a family. I mean, align those economic. When you help a family, you help yourself. But families need help. Absolutely. They are struggling with this issue. Cottages, businesses, significant portfolios. They have nowhere to turn. I've given up on lawyers. I have, listen, I'm not being hard on lawyers. There's 15 million Canadians without a will. Do the math. What's 15 million times $1,000? That's what
a lot of money. Yeah.
A lot of billions of dollars worth of unwritten wills. Don't worry about the lawyers. I'm just trying to move them into the courtroom and litigation over to writing wills.
Right.
Just trying to reallocate them. I want them out of the court.
A little bit.
Out of the court.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the cost of litigation, just, we're talking about $500,000. If your family ends up for a one-day trial, you're into about $500,000.
Oh, for sure.
And the estate is paying, although you got 5 kids, you got 6 lawyers. And the estate's paying all the lawyers.
Wow.
And the lawyers can look in and see how much money's in the estate going, do you think there's a real rush to settle?
No.
Not a huge rush.
Lawyers wouldn't do that, would they?
I've given up on lawyers. They're lovely people. I have many of my best friends are lawyers. I golf with a couple. I take money from them every week in Men's Day.
Yeah.
Love lawyers. But listen, lawyers take instruction. They are not planners.
Right.
They take instructions.
Right.
And most people say, well, I've been working with the same lawyer for 20 years. It's like, well, you may think you have a relationship with your lawyer. The way that the legal profession works, it's not well understood. You ask a lawyer to do something, they open up a retainer, they open up a file. Yep. They do the work, they invoice, and then they close the file. It's not an ongoing relationship like you have with your clients.
Right.
Well, and I speak that speaks to training. That speaks to how they are educated. And I always use this as in relation to accountants. Accountants are amazingly good at what they do, which is looking in the rearview mirror and making sure everything's slotted correctly to properly represent the financial movement of an asset.
Correct.
That's how they're trained.
Yep.
Versus corporate finance people and planner people, we're planned to look forward, outward.
Right.
And look around corners.
And build plans that has some flexibility, options.
Yep.
Right.
Forward looking with options, flexibility with a set of goals that reflect the values and the mission of the family, and that is what planning is. That's a planning rich environment.
To your point, and you talk about this in your book, is that transition anxiety that business owners feel, right? That whole transition of passing to the next generation, or how I'm going to do that, or how I'm going to sell my business.
Yep.
That's hugely emotional.
Yep.
And they don't really know, a lot of times they don't know, like, can I talk to you guys about that? I'm like, that's what we're here for. That's what we do. We make those numbers come to life, but we have to talk about those values and those important things that you're passing on to the next generation. That's all part of it.
Because I think it's totally natural for people when you're looking at a transition point, you're dealing with ambiguity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
And fear of the unknown.
Yeah.
Fear of the unknown, right.
Who will I be after I sell the business?
Yep.
Who will I be after I retire? How much money do I need? How much will my long-term care cost?
Yeah.
If you don't have someone like yourself to help answer those questions, so many people just work longer than they should.
Yep.
They don't know why they're working.
Yeah.
They don't want to buy more stuff. They actually want to get rid of stuff.
Yeah, simplify.
They need someone to coach them through this concept of wealth transition so that it makes sense and they can feel good about it.
Well, one of the things we talk about a lot with our colleagues at National Bank is this concept around doing some planning way in advance of your sale. I think you and I had a conversation prior to going on air around, you don't decide to sell your business because the next quarter is a better time to sell. It's like 5, 6, 7 years out.
Yeah.
It's like landing an airplane.
100%.
You don't drop the airplane from 33,000 feet. You start planning, you start planning about 1,000 miles out, you ease into it. You got to think about it, right?
Oh, yeah. And including, where will I go?
Yeah.
What will I become? What will I do?
Right.
What are my interests?
Yeah.
But you should start doing that planning work and all that thinking 3 to 5 years ahead of time. And you brought up a very interesting, like, how much money do I really need? Because we were talking about the business that could sell for $41 million versus $40 million. And you've seen people go like, I can't sell for 40, I need the 41.
Yeah.
And you're like, really?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't.
Yeah.
It's not going to, it's going to change nothing.
Yeah.
It's going to change nothing.
Yeah.
No, these are all what I call soft issues, which are hard.
Right.
Yeah.
They're the hardest issues.
Yeah.
And so lawyers aren't going to do it. Accountants aren't going to do it. There's the odd one, but really rare.
Yeah.
They're more transactional, super smart, but this is not their wheelhouse.
Right.
You guys are really good at this stuff. This is where advisors are making huge impacts on people's lives. it's not just making more money. It's not just protecting the wealth that they've created. It's helping them with that last piece, that transition piece that can start before they die.
Right.
And then they can really sit back and enjoy watching a next gen, a 30-year-old with a Harvard MBA making $200,000. They're toast in this city. They're going nowhere.
Right.
Yeah.
They're going nowhere without some kind of generational support.
Yeah.
There are tens of thousands of hardworking, super educated,
Right.
really decent people who are going nowhere in this country without a new family conversation starting.
Right.
And,
And I feel like what you're trying to do is anybody who's stuck your head in the sand, because it's easy to do, right? You just don't want to talk about it, but you're trying to pull their heads out and say, just talk about it.
A little agitation. Just to get them a little uncomfortable and agitated. Because I mean, in life, most things are either one of two things. In life, things are either hard and complicated or easy and simple.
Yeah.
Versus the sense I get as I go through your trilogy. I love it that it's a trilogy, by the way.
Yeah.
But that these conversations are hard and simple at the same time. It's a paradox.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's simple to have, but they're difficult emotionally to go through. But you still have to do it. You have to just step off the ledge, so to speak, and have it.
You know, I have watched people go through a family meeting process and years later watch a parent or grandparent die. I've had people tell me that they can't even remember the dollar amount that they inherited, but what they can remember in great detail is the kindness, the thoughtfulness, the effort that a parent or grandparent put in to gather a family and do something that felt unnatural because it was the first time it was happening in their culture.
Right.
And they conquered that fear and they built a great family.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yep. And that's your legacy.
That is legacy.
That is it. That's it.
Yep.
That's it. Right there.
It. I love it. Well, thank you again, Tom. This has been wonderful. And again, we've got the 3 books that are they're must reads. They're absolute, and they're quick reads too.
And don't wait for the movie.
Yeah, yeah.
Who
we don't want to watch.
Who would star as you in the first one?
Tom Cruise. I can answer that.
Okay.
Clearly, Tom Cruise.
But then he would jump off the airplane.
He would. He probably would.
All of these books. I'm going to go through the books again. Every Family's Business here.
First one.
Willing Wisdom, the second one here, and then the new one, The Happy Inheritor. I believe they're all available on Amazon, if I'm not mistaken.
Here's the problem with Amazon. They're often sold out.
Oh.
Or you've got resellers selling used books that are all marked up as new.
Yeah.
You can do that?
Yeah, you can.
Ooh.
ThomasWilliamDeans.com.
Okay.
ThomasWilliamDeans. They're all there. Shipping's free. You'll get it faster than Amazon, and I promise they're new. They're actually unread new books.
Or if you'd like a copy, reach out to us and we'll make sure we can get a copy to you. But these are all must-reads. I think this is very important work that you're doing.
Absolutely.
And Tom, thank you for everything you've done for us.
It's been fun.
Yeah. Thank you.